Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Sin.
Hi, everyone. And welcome to another exciting episode of Bloodborne What, Where, Why? Episode 61.
Woo!
Now, Sophie,
Yes.
please tell me, who is Snuffles the Pig?
So Snuffles is an enemy that was cut from the final version of Bloodborne. Sort of. So, you can't, in a normal playthrough of Bloodborne, ever encounter Snuffles. But despite being cut from the game, Snuffles was completely finished and ready to go as an enemy. So if you go into the special chalice dungeons that the developers used to test parts of the game, you can actually still encounter Snuffles in there. So it's technically wrong to say he was completely removed from the game, because he's not, but you will not normally encounter him. You need to do some fancy chalice dungeon hacking to make it happen.
Thank you, Sophie. Now, could you please describe the appearance of Snuffles?
So Snuffles is a humanoid pig. That is the best way to describe him. He is a sort of squat, fat, very, very hairy humanoid. And he has a curly little tail. And his nose is this massive, kind of upturned snout. And on the sides of his head, he has these two horns, but they don't look like a horn. If you would describe a horn, they look like almost like sort of fungal growth sticking out the side of his head. Just these masses of sort of like weird like blobs and stuff are growing out of the side of his head. And he is armed with an axe. A lot of beasts in the game, either they walk on all fours or they'll sort of hunch over, whereas Snuffles actually stands completely upright. He has very good posture.
Mm-hmm. And so what you're describing, some of us may actually have a picture materialize in our mind of statues found in the Church of the Good Chalice?
You remembered what it was called?
Yeah, I remember what it was called.
Because the last thing we recorded was about the Church of the Good Chalice. It seems like this one's that. Yeah, if you go into the Church of the Good Chalice, by the altar there are these two statues of... They look like people that are transforming into beasts, and they have the same kind of facial structure that Snuffles has. This like massive upturned snout for a nose. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if you just look at one of those and you imagine that's walking around, that's what Snuffles is like.
Oh. Now, Sophie, may you please tell me what Snuffles' consistency?
Well, he's this big, soft, hairy boy. He looks a bit like
Oh.
Totoro, actually.
Oh my god.
It's like just a sort of Totoro was a weird pig gargoyle. Interestingly, he's technically his consistency is he's made of bits of the Dark Souls player character, because, like I mentioned, he walks upright in a very, very
Yeah.
straight and proper way, and that's because he has the same animation rig that like the
Yeah.
standard player character uses, including all of the animations.
Mm-hmm.
So if you actually like import Snuffles into one of the animation viewer or model editor programs, you can make him do things like you can make him praise the sun, you can make him drink
Oh.
Estus. He has like weapon swap animations. He has everything that the player character can do, which makes it sort of difficult to ascertain what he was going to do in game, because he's rigged to do kind of everything. And obviously he wasn't going to do all of these things.
He was a super player.
Okay, and his internal name is... Sometimes he's referred to as Enemy Avatar B, and other times he's just referred to as Berserker Pig.
Berserker pig.
So the Avatar thing is sort of interesting, because the beast-possessed soul is called Avatar, and the Scourge beast is called Avatar. They spell Avatar with an E. It's like Avatar. So we're not quite sure what Avatar is supposed to like imply here? Like, do they? Because Beast Possessed Soul sort of is weird. Like, it can fight other enemies and follow you around and stuff. And yeah, we're just not sure like what avatar was supposed to mean. Like, if that's just a name they used, or if there was actually some plan to have it like invade you or something.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Thank you, Sophie. May you please tell me, what does Snuffles eat?
Well, Snuffles wants to eat you, and Snuffles has. So I talked about them having like animations and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, these are animations that we know were like intended for the character because they will play if you load him into the game. So this is not like accidentally something else. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Snuffles can sleep. He actually just sits down on his little fat pig butt
Mm-hmm.
and he sort of hunches forward, and because he has that big nose, you can hear him snore, and he goes.
Oh.
He's extremely cute. And what will happen is if you walk by him, and this is the part I appreciate. If you walk by him, even if you aren't making very much noise, like you wouldn't normally wake up a sleeping enemy, he'll sniff you because of his nose,
Oh.
and he'll like his nose will suddenly perk up, and he'll go, and then he'll look at you, and then he'll go and get up.
Oh, that's so cute. Now, Sophie, can you
Yes,
tell me what's their hobbies and pastimes?
sleeping apparently, and berserking.
Sleeping and berserking.
I guess after he's been berserking all day, he's quite tired, so he's got to have sleep.
Kind of like a cat.
Yeah,
Oh. Would you say Snuffles is like a domestic animal in Yarnum?
I hope so. I mean, Yarnum has a lot of pigs in it.
Maybe that's why we don't see Snuffles, because they're in everybody's
There's a
like everybody's
curfew and
house
they
has
have to
their
keep
own.
them inside.
Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah,
wouldn't let your
yeah,
cat out if there's a curfew. You keep them inside. So all the
yeah.
Snuffleses are in the house. Oh
Oh, good. Yeah. They all
no!
survived.
Yes, hooray! Now, Sophie,
Yes.
let's move on to where. Where are they?
Nowhere. Because they're not in the game anymore. So, currently, like I said, if you play through Bloodborne beginning to end, and you explore every nook and cranny of it, you will not find Snuffles. If you
Mm-hmm.
use hacked chalice dungeons, you can find Snuffles, and if you extract data from the disk, you can find Snuffles. But presently, he is not in the game. Um, so he's in the chalice dungeon that like I encountered him in. It's this one that's designed for testing, and literally, it's just a very very long corridor with every enemy in the game standing in a conga line. And it just exists to test how those enemies are going to behave in game.
Okay.
So he's there along with like other stuff that was cut from the game as well. He's also in some of the like just other random test chalices you can find as a normal enemy walking around. If you want to know where he was going to be, there are like data tables in the game that show you like entries for different enemies at different points in the game. And there are entries for him in Forbidden Woods.
Okay.
So presumably he was going to be in Forbidden Woods at one point. But like we said, there's statues that look like him in Old Yarnum, so maybe either he was going to be in Old Yarnum or that's foreshadowing for him showing up later on. Interestingly, also, he's weirdly has like a mascot role because the old project,
Loading
like back
screen.
back when Bloodborne was Project Beast,
Yeah.
the loading screen of Project Beast is just concept art of Snuffles, but he's wearing armor.
Yeah.
Like he's wearing this sort of plate armor, and it almost looks like he was a person that turned into a pig while wearing a suit, and it's all just like stretched the armor out, which makes him not only Totoro but also Porco Rosso. I guess the other thing to discuss, like in terms of him being this like mascot looking character from way back, is that like this presumably is when it's still way closer connected to Demon Souls. The fat ministers in Demon Souls, like there's artwork of them riding a giant pig that never made it into the game. So I'm wondering if like, and they have axes as well. So I'm wondering if
Mhm.
he was like maybe supposed to be like a transformed version of the fat ministers from Demon Souls, like they turned into pig things.
Mhm.
Because he sort of has the same build. He doesn't have a hat though.
Okay, okay.
If they'd given him the fat minister's top hat, that just would have been incredible.
Oh, can you give him a top hat? Can you hack into the game and give him a top hat?
I'll ask you, Junior.
If anyone can do it, it's Eugenio.
Snuffles restoration mod.
Yes, Eugenio, please. The community needs this.
The problem is, Eugenio, when he's doing his restoration mods, he runs things by me, right? So I
Yeah.
feel like I could just lie to him about this and say, like, yes, Snuffles was actually the original final boss of the game, and he wore a top hat. So really, you're gonna have to put this
Yeah.
back in the game. Otherwise, it's not a real restoration mod, is it?
Oh my god.
And I think he would believe me.
Ah! Thank you, Sophie.
Hello, everybody. This is Ebrooitus. For those of you enjoying the episode, please remember to stretch, snack, and hydrate. If any references didn't make sense to you, ask your nearest cultist. And now, back to the podcast.
Now, Sophie,
Mm-hmm.
where did they come from?
That's a really good question, because like I said, there's artwork of him, and he looks like he was a medieval knight who turned into a pig.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing like it's something to do with back when that aspect of it was a bit stronger. Like back when like there's like art there's like screenshots where you just straight up have a sword and shield and stuff. I think it was like they were leaning a little bit more into the um done like there were like demon like just straight up things called demons and stuff in it. So it's way more like this is an evolution of Demon Souls rather than this is its own thing. And yeah, I'm wondering if like this was actually supposed to be like the fat ministers at some point. Um, but then like there's the people in the there's the statues that look like they're turning into. But the other interesting thing about the statues is that like they have little lumps on the side of their head, whereas
Okay.
Snuffles has these massive like sort of fungus horns growing out. So I'm assuming like in the the ones in the statues, it almost looks like they trimmed the horns back, like they cut them.
Oh,
And I don't know if
interesting.
that's like to make them like fit into society easier, like Hellboy, or
Oh,
if yeah, or I don't know. I don't know, but I recall there being something called a boar god referenced. Yeah, so I don't know, like if there was some like pig thing going on that Yharnam just has sewer pigs now. It's like the garbage ape from Heathcliff, but it's the sewer pig.
thank you, Sophie. Now, Sophie, let's move
Yeah.
on to why. I'm
Okay.
going to read you some categories and you have to classify Snuffles into one of them.
Okay.
Are they outsider, Yarnamite, bourgeoisie, beast, kin, or great one?
Well, they're a beast now, but if they had the top hat, they would have been bourgeoisie.
Thank you, Sophie. And how hard are they?
They're not very hard at all. But keep in mind that like all the Bloodborne enemies, like they have innate stats, but then they have multipliers that are attached to them later on. So I think all the ones in that conga line are like the base stats without a multiplier. So if Snuffles had been in Forbidden Woods, presumably he would have had the same multiplier applied to him that the other things in Forbidden Woods had. So he would have been scaled to the area.
What would their faces look like?
His first phase is he's asleep. It takes a really long time for him to wake up.
Okay.
It's like the first phase of Midra. Sin staring ahead because she's not played Shadow of the Erdtree. Okay, so what happens is you fight Snuffles normally.
Yeah.
You defeat him. But then Gale appears. And Snuffles eats the blood of the Dark Soul. And he ascends to his ultimate form, Snuffles Omega, who has Orphan of Koz's moveset.
Oh my god.
And can spawn clones of Melania. And you fight him on Radahn's battlefield. And Radahn is also there, and he's got his bow, and he's actually firing little Snuffles at you.
Oh my god.
He's loading little pigs in his bow, and he's firing them, and they fly over to you, and then they land in the ground and get up and fight you.
Oh my god, that's amazing. That is beautiful.
And then you defeat that, and then Mikola appears. And descends over Snuffles' shoulder and says, "Brother, I'm going to be a god." And then you fight a giant golden Snuffles that shoots lasers out of the sky. And if you haven't collected the 28 fragments of the Snuffles tree, he has a plus 2,000% damage multiplier.
Okay.
And max defenses against everything. And then you beat him, and the painter appears and says, "And so it was that a tarnished became Elden Lord, and flames will once again dance across the darkness, and then the player is a great one." And then the player's armor gets up, and its eyes glow red, and it says initiating combat mode. And then it says to be continued in Bloodborne Night Rain.
Bravo, Miyazaki.
I think we got all of his ideas in that. All 6 of them.
I'm kind of disappointed that nobody stomped a baby.
Maybe that's one of his moves. He jumps up in the air and he just starts throwing babies at you. You have to parry them to bounce them off you to safety.
10 out of 10, game of the year.
Miyazaki likes ambiguity after all.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sin.
Do the outro.
That was What, Where, Why, episode 61. Snuffles the pig who's not in the game anymore.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sin.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. See y'all next time. Well, that's staying on Patreon.